So welcome to the IDRPP's Time to Act Mental Health Echo. My name is Tori Coons and I am project support for Project Echo. I have the privilege to introduce our housekeeping slides before we hear from our presenter. So for our Echo sessions, we record them for educational and quality improvement purposes. So by participating in this session, you are consenting to being recorded. If you do not wish to be recorded, feel free to disconnect from the session, but we'd love to have you stay with us, so keep that in mind. Echo is an interactive community. To help support that, we ask our participants to be engaged in asking questions after our didactic speaker and to provide feedback or ideas during our case presentation or discussion. As our discussions often surround our experiences with kids and families, please protect these individuals' privacy. We ask that you avoid using identifying information such as their name, as well as the names of family members, friends, or coworkers. If you have any questions as to what would be considered identifying information, please reach out to a hub member. All of our hub members have an asterisk before their name or will shortly, as I completely mispronounced that. Sorry, guys. During each of our Echo sessions, we have a subject matter expert or didactic speaker, case presentation or discussion, which we always like to shout out. This is such an important part of our Echo sessions. So if you ever would like to present your own case discussion, we would love to have that and to participate and give you recommendations or ideas. And then lastly, we also include professional networking kind of throughout the presentations, which is why we ask you to say your name and your contact information in the chat, as well as in our case presentation discussion groups. For this session, we ask that you rename your profile to your first and last name, state, job title, and organization. To rename your profile, you can click on the participants icon in the bottom menu of the Zoom window, then your personal profile, where it allows you to rename your profile in the dialog box. Today, if questions come up during the didactic presentation, we ask that you put them in the chat or you raise your hand. Janelle will be monitoring that, so we will get to that when it's best for kind of the process of the presentation. To raise your hand, you can hover your mouse on the Zoom window to locate the menu and then select participants and click the raised hand option at the bottom. In our Echo sessions, we ask our participants to respect the presenter by using the chat or raise hand feature to ask questions or contribute. Keep questions brief and on topic. Introduce yourself and your organization before speaking or asking a question. And then also, if you're willing, turn on your camera during sessions, as it helps so much with connection, building community, and making networking more meaningful. I know it's really easy on Zoom to sit with your camera off and kind of do whatever works best for you in the moment, but we love to see your smiling faces. I know it definitely makes it easier to present and to kind of have a conversation and to get to know people. So by attending this session, you can earn professional development credits. To do so, please fill out the survey Janelle will be dropping in the chat throughout the session. This survey will also be included in the following email that I will send out on Friday. So if you miss it now, you can access it then. Canvas is where we store all of the information to prepare for, review, and implement the strategies discussed in our Echo sessions. If you would like access to Canvas, you can email timetoact@aggies.usu.edu, and we will send you instructions for how to register. Case studies, as I mentioned earlier, are where we share information about real-life situations, hear from colleagues about recommendations, and receive valuable feedback to take and apply. I will be presenting our case study today, and I'm so excited. This is such a great opportunity to work within our network of professionals. So if you are interested in presenting a case, please reach out to timetoact@aggies.usu.edu. We love to have our participants present. To stay connected with everything Project Echo, you can follow our Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn. We send out a lot of important reminders or just important things from all of our sessions. So it's a really great place to stay connected and also just to learn and to really enjoy the benefits of our Echo network. So without any further ado, I would like to turn the time over today to Yvonne Marcyes, who's our presenter. She's going to be talking about the Mind Body Bridging Community Mental Health Clinic up here at Utah State. So I'm going to stop sharing and let her kind of get set up.
All right, thank you for that. Let's see. Okay, everything come up?
Yes, it looks beautiful.
Perfect. Thank you, Tori. I am Yvonne Marcyes. Right now, I'm working with Utah State University's iSystem Institute, and we have a mind-body bridging. This is a modality that is part of USU, and I'll give a little bit of history on it. For myself, I came here from, I had a lengthy career in the Bay Area in high tech, and I worked for Cisco Systems and Tesla. And it's kind of funny, as I learned the mind body bridging, it's like I came about bits and pieces throughout life just to deal with stress. So it was fun to actually learn about this technique. It's like it's so succinct, it's very simple, and it's a great addition not only for individuals who I'm sure nobody here has any kind of stress or anxiety, or have people in their life with that. So it was a fun practicum. I was sharing earlier that it's like after my business career, I started just consulting nonprofits. I wanted to use my business background and help nonprofits be stronger. And I would go in and help boards and facilitate and look at their financials. But there was a piece of, the populations that they were serving that really had me starting to think that I'd like to learn and do a little bit more. So I actually am going back to get my master's. And so that will be finishing up May 1st. Not that I'm excited. And I am going to miss the iSystem Institute, but I will stay closely connected with them. I noticed that a previous presentation you've had in the last few months was about resilience. Certainly something we all want. The premise and the founders of this modality are Dr. Stanley Block and Carolyn Block. And as he retired, they worked on this for a few decades. And as they retired, they actually gifted the intellectual property to USU. And so we have a whole facility under Utah State University that teaches this to undergraduates and graduates alike. And, their whole effort was trying to come up with a technique that could really help people just, start to shift from that anxious or nervous space into what they call natural functioning. That's in the present moment. There's a question. Nope. Someone coming in. And so mind body bridging is a therapeutic approach. And I like that it takes from so many different principles. So we'll have psychology, neuroscience, mindfulness, social workers, educators that leverage this technique. And it aims to kind of take the gap that happens between your mental processes, that's the mind part, and body. Our body tells us when we're stressed. We don't often pay attention to that, and we tend to walk around with tight necks, yucky feelings in our gut. But that's our early warning, signal. And so that's where they have mind body bridging and making sure that they're working together. As part of the institute itself, not only do we have a clinic where we actually see clients and teach, but I also like to point out too that we have workbooks that we continually update and try to expand. But it's the evidence-based studies. We're a university, and we do research. And so these are the ones, and a lot of these will have several, like sleep is a huge one. As I work with clients and over time we're working on one thing, but when I have them fill out their quality of life, almost always their sleep improves. So it's sort of like a byproduct of the clients that I'm seeing. But we've done a lot of research on sleep. We know that it works with PTSD, depression, fatigue. We use it and hold workshops for substance abuse. We have seen reducing health disparities in diverse communities. And this study also had a byproduct of the individuals that are working in underserved populations, how it was helping those help more and better and not get over fatigued with hearing some of the challenges that they face on a daily basis. Healing dysfunctional identity, that sounds kind of funny, but it is a study that basically shows how the brain works, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. But it takes neuroscience and how we will start to ruminate and spin on things, and we start to code that brain that should be shifting back and forth from present moment to, okay, something's going on, I need to worry, but we start to stay in that worry mode on a continual basis, and we're not going into the present moment enough. And so that was a really good study. And domestic violence. The clinic here in Logan has just started um, doing an actual domestic violence program that we're working to help those that are the perpetrators learn how to shift, their mind from being angry and upset and teach them how to first change it. I often, as I'm going through my classes in social work under CBT, which is a big umbrella, I certainly see where this fits in. And the premise with mind body bridging is, you've got the thought comes first, then you get the feelings and the emotions, and then you get the behavior. And the whole goal of this is to stop it right at the thought. The thought is the first thing that kicks in. And if we can start to dissipate that thought, then we won't get caught up in those emotions and the turmoil and then act out. We also share this with a lot of, and it's also beneficial for a lot of different audiences. So, again, being able to share with you today, we share with athletes trying to be at their peak performance, addiction recovery, first responders. We do an awful lot with the justice system and go out to sheriff's departments and work with them because we definitely want them to be in the present moment, be aware of all the options they've got, and not to be ruminating and be in kind of a survival mode. We do have mental health clinician workshops. We do continuing education credits for those that want to integrate this into their practice. We have a program that is designed for younger individuals, and so with that, educators. All right, so the iSystem, not like an iPad, the I stands for identity system. And it's the premise that we work our whole lives to come up with an identity. And so as part of our identity, we have things that will come up that don't fit what we think should be happening. And, it's like we are designed. My bachelor's degree was in anthropology. And, we're always looking around. We want to be safe. And so when something happens, you stop, you listen, and then you start to go through all the things that could be wrong. That noise could mean danger. And then you start to go through and look at, when did I hear that noise before? When did I experience that before? Oh, this could be that terrible, situation. And that's where we start to just spin and ruminate. And so as our amygdala becomes active, it starts to pull from our files on where we can save ourselves from something that might happen that's terrible. Our thinking becomes very narrow. We are not looking at anything on the side. We're just highly tuned to decide whether we need to fight, whether we need to flee. And of course, there's free and fawning now that's in that. And this is all called the neural network default mode. So DMN. And I always have to write that out because when I see DMN, I always see demon, but it's our default mode. And our identity system becomes activated. Oops, going the wrong way. There was a build there that was really good. And of course, when we're in that space, we want to be able to learn how to stop the spinning, stop the clutter that's going on in our mind, and we want to move to our prefrontal cortex. That's the task positive side of our brain. And we certainly then, if we can shift, we're able to see a lot more options. We can become more flexible. We can start to see that, maybe this isn't as serious as we think it is. We can act with awareness and, we can choose different ways of responding. So with that, I need everybody to find a piece of paper, something to write on. And this is where I usually joke. I had the high-tech jobs. I think I was saying Cisco, Tesla, and it's like I used to know. I'm getting old now, so I don't use technology like I used to. But I moved to a very low-tech job. My job is it's like you have to have a piece of paper and you have to have a pen. That's it. Now, I want you to draw a circle in the middle of that piece of paper. And in that circle, I want you to think about what is the troubling situation you have going on right now. What's bothering you? Just put it in the middle. I'm not going to make you share, but once you have it in the center, then just start mind dumping. Just start writing out the thoughts that are coming to your mind. You don't have to edit. I don't want you to stop and make full sentences. Just start throwing them out around that troubling situation that you're thinking. And now that I've made you think about this troubling situation, I want you to pay attention and notice your body. Where are you feeling tension? And write it down at the bottom of the paper. Put what it feels like. I always get it in my left neck. I'm not very creative. That's where it always shows up. I will have clients that they'll get chest pressure. They know that's family. And if they start getting stress, on their shoulders, that's about something they shouldn't, they should be doing. But mine's pretty boring. Hopefully yours is interesting. But notice, and can you imagine, we sit here and think and process these things just kind of on a subconscious level, but our brain, to keep that activated, needs to start taking energy from our body. And over time, I've worried about things. I wish it were just a couple of minutes, but I know I worry about things for hours, for days, for weeks, and the toll that takes on our body. That's really trying to say, hey, you got some tension here. Now, after you've written your tension, kind of pay attention because I'm starting to work you guys up. I'm getting you stressed. You thought you were coming to just a meeting, you were going to be all relaxed and learn. What is your mind like now that I've got you thinking about this? Is it spinning? Is it, cluttered? What is your mind doing, and how do you think you would deal with, a question from a kid out there in public? It's like your mind is all busy. What would your interactions be like? And then I want you to put a check mark as you look at the thoughts you wrote down. Pick a couple of them that give you the most body tension. And then we're going to move to what we call requirements. That's part of our identity. It's like, as I grew up, I learned the rules of my house. I learned the social norms I needed. And so I set up expectations, and some expectations have a little e. It's like no big deal if that gets broken. But our identity has capital E expectations. And so for the two, or how many ever you checked off, I want you to come up with what is the requirement that got violated. Things are supposed to work a particular way. And in this troubling situation, it did not. And so the requirement always has a should or must. So I have this example. Somebody had a troubling situation about job stress. Yep, that's a common one. And then this person, they wrote around it, it's like, I'm scared about losing my job. I don't feel like going to work. And at the top, I can't live up to others' expectations of me. Darn that micromanaging manager. And so the requirement for this checkmarked one is I should be able to live up to others' expectations. No perfectionism there. And then the other example on the left, I have to give up my life for this job. Been there, done that, retired. And the requirement for that is I should not have to give up my life for this job. And the last example is they're anxious about being so far behind in their job. And so the requirement here is I should always be caught up. Now, this again, this requirement, it's like everything is in life kind of, it has its ups and downs, but all of a sudden you hit into this requirement. That you have an expectation that everything should be fair. Why can other people do this, but when I do it, all of a sudden it's a big issue. So that requirement is everything should be fair. You hit that requirement and it starts to initiate that survival part of your brain. It starts to spin. It starts to go through all of the different scenarios. And then before you know it, you're going home and you're frustrated, and what would have been a good evening is not, because you're still worried about this troubling situation. Now, we've essentially taken something that is sort of this unconscious as part of your default mode. It kind of stays in your subconscious, but by putting it down on the paper, you're putting labels to it. You're bringing it up to your conscious level of, this is the things that are bothering me. And these are the ways I would have liked things to work, and they didn't this time. And so it's enough just to put it out there on this piece of paper. It starts to slow down that fight or flight. And now, and thank goodness everybody's on mute, we want to diffuse. So I want you to say out loud. And if you got someone in the room, you could say it quietly to yourself inside. But it's like, I have a requirement that I should be able to live up to others' expectations. Just sit with it. Say it quietly in your head. Let it resonate in your brain. I have this requirement that I should be able to live up to others' expectations. So I want everybody just to take a minute and do that for all of the requirements you wrote down. Say it out loud. Feel it inside. And then another thing, because I did have you write all of the things that were rolling around in your head, I want you to read each one of the things you wrote down. And afterwards, I want you to say, that's just a thought. So I'm scared about losing my job. That is just a thought. I don't feel like going into work today. That is just a thought. And go through your whole paper of artwork here and diffuse each one you wrote down. And I know it always feels a little awkward to say these things out loud, but every new skill you have, and we're learning a skill that will help you build resilience, it's going to be a little awkward. And as I work with clients, I want them to do one of these every day. I had a professor who would right away say that he's a nervous Nelly. And he's like, I have to do this, I don't know, about every other minute. And it's practicing it on paper so that, like I said, we go out to sheriff's departments to teach. We do this on paper, and I've done it now for 2 years, and I've learned more about myself. Um, but as you do it on paper and in the privacy of your own quiet time, when I am out in public, I have this pet peeve about customer service. And if I buy, a box thing that I have to put together and the nuts are missing, if I'm in that overactive identity system and I go in and talk to the customer service agent about How on earth could they just rebox this box without checking to see if the nuts were in it? Versus if I can get myself into a calmer space, be in the present moment, that interaction changed a whole lot. It's like, hey, I don't have any nuts. And so, they're much more apt to want to help. So after you have labeled, we've written it down, we've called it what it is, it's just a thought, it's a requirement, we're going to go to the next phase. So on your piece of paper, I want you to flip it over, hopefully it's blank, or find another piece of paper, put a circle in the middle, write the same troubling situation down, then just set it aside for a second. Now, once you write anything else, just put that the same troubling situation down. And I want to go through the basics of mind-body bridging. Now, we have a whole lot more when we do our classes, but this is just a fun, quick exercise that you can take away today and do as often as you need. I want to review the steps. So we've already recognized, you put everything down. You feel the tension in your body. You're recognizing that there's something that's going on that's getting your mind activated. And then we labeled things. It's just putting it down on a piece of paper. You're taking it out of your mind. You're starting to slow that fight or flight because you're taking an action. You're putting it down. We decided what our requirements are, that should or must statement. Diffusing. And all of these steps are really important. Diffusing, saying it out loud. Saying, I have a requirement that. Get to know what your requirements are. It kind of softens. When we're teaching kids, we will actually have them change, I have a requirement that I should always be appreciated at work, and we change it to prefer. I would prefer that everybody treated me well at school. And then that's just a thought. I unfortunately taught my sister this, and now when we go to Thanksgiving or any family event where somebody's saying something to rile me up, she'll lean over and she's like, that's just a thought. But you want to catch it at a thought before I say something I shouldn't. It's like catch it at the thought. Now, the last part. And again, this, all three steps are really important. We came up with a really fun, trendy acronym. The RE up at the top is recognize. The LA is you got to label it. And then the CS is coming to your senses. And so as you get comfortable in your seat, I just want you to pay attention to what your body was designed to do. It's supposed to take in information. It doesn't even really translate the words. My ears don't know the words I'm saying, but they're designed to take in the level of my voice. I know it's a little deeper. You notice the resonance. It can kind of be sing-songy. You just listen. And now search around and hear what things you hear around you. Now notice your breathing. I don't want you to change it. I just want you to notice it going in and out. Feel the temperature of the room you're in. Check your body. What parts feel cold and what feels warm? And for our visual people, Just look at the intensity of the colors of the slide, the green and the blue together, the shading. Feel the pressure of your body in the chair, where your feet are, or if your arm is resting on something. Feel where your body is coming in contact with something. If you get distracted, just go back to what you hear. So as we recognized, labeled, and going through our senses, coming to your senses is like the reboot on a computer. And it just kind of locks in that relaxed space. And now I want you to pick up the pen, but I want you to stay in this space. And so I want you to feel that pen in your hand. And I want you to go ahead to the map, the blank one. Now write down what comes to mind, but feel that pen. Feel the ink coming out on the paper. Watch it as you write. It's just, what are your thoughts now? Keep listening to sounds around you. Keep feeling the pen. Keep listening to my voice. Now, as you finish up, I want you to pay attention to map 1 and map 2. So the first map you did, go back to that and write 2 descriptor words that you had. How would you describe that first map you did? And then the map you just did, map 2. Write 2 words that describe that one. Is there a difference? Do you notice anything about those? Been doing this a long time, but my drawing skills are not really great, so forgive my little stick figures. But our identity system, again, it's like it's designed that we have these expectations. And the expectations that I had as a kid don't really serve me as an adult, and sometimes they still come up. It's enough just to say, hey, I have this requirement. Maybe it's not serving me anymore. But by having it on a piece of paper, by labeling it, I can say, oh, okay, yeah, that's why I do that. And so here we have, and typically your first map will have words like it's chaotic. It was stressful. Oh man, I hate this woman. She's making me depressed and having to talk about this. People feel like, oh, I'm broken. I'm so confused. And that's who we're told we should be. In our mind and in our identity, we have this, Yvonne should be this. And when Yvonne isn't always this, I start spinning. I start getting anxious. I start getting pissed at people because they're not following my rules and my shoulds. And then, and don't be upset if it didn't totally work for you. It takes practice, but 90% of the time, it's like your second map is going to feel more constructive. You're going to feel a little bit more like, oh, okay, I can do this. I'm fine. It's like, oh, it's going to be all right. And that's what we call natural functioning. That's being who you actually are. Nobody is broken. We don't have to fix things. We're perfect the way that we are. And so we want to be in the present moment. That's kind of a natural state, and we're much more optimistic and happy in that state. Now, I do joke. This isn't we don't have a magic wand. Doing an MBB practice is not going to make troubling situations never pop up. However, it does create. I always like this visual because, and then when we're working with kids, we'll call it small mind and then a big mind. And so when we're operating in our small mind, that troubling situation for this cylinder starts to encompass the whole thing. We don't have a whole lot of free brain matter working on other things. We're working on that troubling situation. And so when we use our big mind, when we shift from our survival to our executive functioning, the troubling situation is still there, but we're not spinning, we're not ruminating. We've labeled it, we've calmed it, because how often do we worry about things that never even happen? I can spend a week worrying about how something's going to work out, but it didn't help me any. And so this larger beaker, this big mind, the situation's still there, but we open up our mind to having more creative solutions. We see things in a much clearer mode than when we're in panic mode. So natural functioning, it refers to blending in our mind and body state so that when you're engaged in the daily activities of our life, we can be in the present moment. We don't have that hindrance of our identity system making all these rules. We can be more relaxed and just be who you are. Now, to end, the iSystem Institute, of course, we have a website, and I don't use QR codes, but here, you've got some here. But I just wanted to remind everybody, if this is something that you want to learn more about, the bottom right are things that we do just for the public, everybody. We have a mind-body bridging workshop. We do it, it's 4 sessions. We have one coming up in April that'll be on Thursdays from, I think it's 6 to 7 in the evening. It's a Zoom. Anybody can come, and we go over what we've done today, just kind of the introduction of it. But we talk about depressors and the fixers. Those are the voices in our mind that are telling us things, why they happen, how do we start to slow them down, and to start to build your own practice. We also have a clinic. It needs to be individuals in the state of Utah. And we we provide up to 10 free sessions for anybody in Utah. And, just to be able to share, a way for us to help others with mental health, provide this technique, teach, a technique for maintaining or building our resilience. And then for anybody that's interested in the deeper dive, understanding it, we do have courses that you can take and be certified, but we'll do continuing education credits for, in fact, we have one coming up this Friday, but we'll do these on about a quarterly basis. where you can go and learn more. And we usually show different settings, what we've done in the Justice Department. We'll talk about, some of the probation classes that we do, domestic violence, educators. So that's been really good. So with that, now that you're all in this calm state, are there any questions that you have? And Tori, I wasn't paying any attention to anything that anybody posted, so.
It doesn't look like we have any questions in the chat,
Well, all right.
so it's
Is
kind of
everybody
just
feeling
open.
good?
Yeah. I cannot currently see who just raised their hand, but please come
It's
off
me,
mute and
Tori JC.
oh, perfect, JC.
I know that guy.
I happen to know Yvonne. Um, I really appreciated this kind of overview and this little exercise. I'm curious to hear like which populations you have found maybe the most benefit have taken the most benefit. I know you've done a lot with law enforcement and things like that, but where have you seen in your 2 years? What are kind of the highlights for you? What have you seen as like really like get you fired up about MBB and like this is a great tool. I'm really happy I get to share with other people.
And like I said at the beginning, it's like, through life you learn things to try to manage your own stress. But I've always loved this because it's just like it's a 1, 2, 3 step. It's all contained. And I wished I had learned it when I was much, much younger. As far as populations, I think it's pretty open. I have done being part of the university, I have a lot of USU students that will come in and they're away from home for the first time. They're stressed. And this is just a tool that helps them get beyond, their immediate, oh my gosh, it's midterms, I'm going to flunk, to being able to calm their mind before they go into one of the finals. I have worked with sexual assault victims, and it has helped immensely. Um, I really had fun, and I haven't ever really wanted to work within the justice system per se, but I had a class with some people that were on probation, and I think it was 4 weeks. And it's like they would start. I've got 10 people in Zoom that are in various stages of any kind of attention. Their cameras showing the top of their head, and some of them were pretty toasted. To the end, the one guy that I thought was not going to make it, he was blitzed when he came to the first class. And at the end of the class, he was like, "This helps me to not take that drink." And it's like, and he has sent me a note. He's like, okay, I slipped, but it didn't last as long. So I find that it can work for pretty much any population. I do have a niece who is special needs, and she had traumatic brain injury in utero. But and she's actually come. She did the USU program, and so she's 23 now, and she uses it. I made the joke about my sister, it's just a thought. Now Megan does that. It's like, all right, it's just a thought, Auntie. It's just a thought. It's like, yes. And it stops. She would get agitated having to wait in line. And I was like, oh, there's too many people and I can't take it. And she'd start, and it's like, just a thought, just a thought. And, she would start to calm down. So it's a tool to start to try to get ourselves to shift out of that space quickly. So I think it works for everybody, JC.
Yvonne, just to interrupt briefly, we have a question in the chat, so I can
Great.
read
What does
that
it
for you.
say?
Is there a way to measure progress or an improvement in participants that use MBB? Also, how can MBB be adapted for individuals who may struggle with traditional mindfulness practices?
Okay.
And
So,
that question is from Leo, by the way. I forgot to mention it.
well, Leo, actually, yeah. So when I'm doing, like, I'll have clients come in for those 10 sessions, and we actually have a quality of life scale. We do OQ as well, so it's a much longer one, right? So we do that several times throughout the 10 sessions because we are a university and we are doing research. But it is part of our session, and we work through a manual with individuals. But we have a shortened quality of life scale, and then we start to also have a second one that they fill out. It's like, did you practice? Did you do your mapping? Did you notice your requirements? And for one of my assignments, I put that all together. And it's like, for those that were actually doing the practice, you could see it start to rise. Their quality of life went the same way. And some people aren't taking to it. Some people aren't ready for it. So it would be down, and their quality of life kind of was the same. So we do measure that way, as well as OQ. And adapting this, it's like we teach the specifics. As I've learned it and integrate it, I actually, I adjust to the individual that's in front of me. I had a kid who was very sensitive about his ADHD, and he could not do the the mindfulness exercise, doing the coming to your senses. And it's like, I like the coming to your senses. It's not the meditation. It's, what are your senses? Feel your senses, literally. And so I will work with clients. What works best? Practice building up another one. But this particular client, he needed to have his leg was bouncing up and down. And it's like, it's okay. I'm not expecting you to not, you are who you are. It's like, focus on your leg bouncing up and down. Just take some time to recognize it. We aren't looking for a half an hour Zen. We want you just to take 30 seconds, 60 seconds out in the heat of a moment and just do something. Another example was someone got really nervous in a meeting that she would be going to. And it's like, just feel your collar. Feel, is it soft? Is it scratchy? Just take a moment out to shift your brain from all of the crazy, nobody likes me in this room. I'm not going to say anything intellectual. And it's like, tell yourself they're just thoughts. Do that reboot to calm. And it made a big difference. So thank you for that, Leo.
We have another question in the chat from Heather. She asked, how can a parent co-regulate with their child in ways that strengthen the mind-body connection over the time?
Yeah, it's like they don't give parenting guidelines. It's like, and we tend to teach kids the things that we know. Um, I've had families attend the workshop, and it gives a language because this is a modality, and we're teaching it to graduate students to take out and use with clients. But yet, it's a tool that you can start to use at home. And so you teach that, and then you have the situation where my sister leans over and it's like, that's just a thought, Yvonne. Don't kill our brother. It's just a thought. It gives you wording, and it gives you the opportunity to teach your kids yet one more tool to help them in the life of resilience. There was a study that showed it was gender specific, but boys tended to get more interactions and tools, and the girls were not. And so teaching additional tools helped round out women so that they had additional, tools. So it's like learn the things that work. I love this one because it's so simple, and teach your family. Use the same words. Come to our workshop.
That was great. It looks like we've answered all the questions in the chat, so I wanted to issue another invitation. If anyone wants to ask a question, you're welcome to put it in the chat or to come off mute or raise your hand.
And if anyone has something along the way, Tori, take it, and I'm happy to answer it too later.
Okay, perfect. Well, then, that being said, thank you, Yvonne. I know I learned so much during this.
Good.
I was even thinking about just how to apply this in my life this week. It's been a very busy week.
Practice.
Yes.
Map it
See,
out. I appreciate the opportunity very much. Thank you.
I am very happy that we were able to have you here today, and maybe we'll even have you back in the future. I'm just putting that out there.
Happy to.
Um,
Anytime.
thank you. As we kind of continue moving on in this echo session, we're going to have a case presentation, which I will do, and then we'll split off into breakout rooms. So I'm going to share my screen very quickly if I can find the right one. Aha. Okay. So hopefully you're seeing my case presentation. Let me know if that's not the case. Let me see if I can actually make it move forward. There we go. So for some background on this case, and I realized that I accidentally shared a different screen than the one that's recording me, so I apologize if I keep looking away. The child in question's name is Aiden. He is 3 years old and 10 months. He lives with his mother, maternal grandmother, and 10-year-old cousin. He has a strong attachment to his mother and grandmother, but struggles to share with his cousin. He is being referred for escalating peer aggression in his preschool class and his difficulty with emotional expression. He has high activity levels, big emotional reactions, yelling, crying, throwing toys, and gets easily frustrated when tasks are challenging, such as puzzles or drawing. Presenting concerns over the past 6 to 8 weeks, Aiden's preschool teachers report a significant increase in aggressive behaviors, especially during peer conflict of shared play. So, like he hits and pushes peers when they take a toy, he throws objects when he's upset, he screams and hides under tables when overwhelmed. He finds it difficult to use words to express his frustration. And then there's been a rapid escalation from mild frustration to intense dysregulation. Presenting concerns continued. His family is reporting that they feel very unsure whether to comfort Aiden or set firm limits, to address the behavior immediately or wait for him to calm, and then also like to respond differently depending on the trigger, whether that's fatigue, hunger, or overstimulation. Overstimulation. Let me say that correctly. There's also some inconsistent behavioral expectations between Aiden's mom and grandma. The mom tends to prioritize emotional reassurance, while grandma emphasizes behavioral compliance. So for our goals and barriers, our goals include helping Aiden regulate his emotions, as well as teaching him replacement skills for peer conflict, and also increasing consistent responses from mom and grandma. Some of the barriers, though, are skill generalization from practice to natural play. It's really easy to practice different conflict skills, but it's a lot harder to help him use them in real life situations. Also helping him communicate under stress, as he tends to use limited words during his dysregulation and aggression. And then also just addressing the differing caregiving styles and beliefs among his mom and grandma. So for our community discussion, we're going to talk about what skills or replacement behaviors would be most developmentally appropriate to teach Aiden right now, how environmental modifications in the home or classroom could reduce triggering situations, and also how interventionists can help Aiden's mom and grandma balance emotional reassurance responses, and behavioral focused responses. So Janelle, if you could open those breakout rooms, that would be wonderful.